Om Gam Ganapati Namaha. Kaliyuga Kalpataru. Appendix. Glories after entering the Brindavana. Chapter 6. C. Sri Thomas Munro. The miracle that Sri Raghavendra Swamigalu performed for a British high official 150 years after entering Brindavana is an event that shines in golden letters in the history of Indian saints, sages, devotees, and accomplished yogis. This incident occurred around 1820 CE. At that time, Sri Subudhendra Tirtharu from 1807 to 1825 was the pontiff of Sri Madhvacharya's Mahasamsthana, and Sri Sujanendra Tirtharu presided in Chikkapatana, that is Chickpatti. Sri Sujanendra Tirtharu had served under his Guru and was blessed by him. And after the Guru attained Vrindavana, he led the Mahasamsthana from 1825 to 1836 and earned renown. He resided at the original seat of the mutt in Nanjanagudu. By that time, almost all of India had come under the British rule. Once the East India Company had firmly established its administrative control, they began reviewing the grants, villages, lands, and endowments that had been gifted by previous kings to temples, mutts, resting houses, scholars, and religious institutions. The question was whether these grants were being utilized as originally intended, whether the past kings' gifts were legitimate or not, and whether people and institutions were rightfully enjoying them. The company wanted to assess whether they should continue such grants or withdraw them. To make such assessments and take appropriate action, the East India Company had set up survey settlements and Inam commissions. British officers across the country were tasked with this work. Among them, Sir Thomas Munro held a senior position under the Madras Presidency's Survey Settlement Department. When Sir Thomas Munro Sahib was stationed in Ballari, he undertook an investigation into the village of Mantralaya within Ballari district. He arrived at Mantralaya with his trusted staff, including secretaries, local administrators, clerks, and others. The locals feared that the English official had come to seize Mantralaya. The pontiff of the Mata was in Nanjanagudu, and all official documents related to the village were kept at the Mutt. A representative of the Mutt was in Mantralaya at that time, overseeing Sri Rayaru's worship and temple activities. There was no time to bring the documents from Nanjanagudu. As the officials had already arrived, unsure what to do next, the Mutt representative, the village Gauda, Kulkarni, and residents consulted with each other. They explained the situation to the local Indian officials who had come along with Sir Munro. Though many Indian officials were part of the Survey Settlement Department and supported retaining the village for the Mutt, they lacked the courage to stand up and argue before the British officer. The Mutt official, Gauda, Kulkarni, and villagers pleaded with the Indian officers, explaining Sri Rayaru's greatness, that he was still present in his physical form within the Vrindavana, and implored them to somehow save the village. Hearing of Sri Rayaru's miracle, some of the Indian officers, the Sarishtadars, clerk, and others resolved that they must ensure Mantralaya not be confiscated, and boldly presented the matter to Sri Thomas Munro. Listening to them, Munro Sahib laughed and said, "Even I believe in God and saints, but what you are saying, that a yogi who entered Samadhi 150 years ago is still alive, is strange. I cannot believe such a thing. The idea itself is ridiculous and a blind superstition. You Indians will believe anything. If you have direct evidence or proper documentation, I will review it and make a decision. Otherwise, I have no choice but to confiscate the village according to British rule. Since you insist, I will personally visit and inspect your Guru Samadhi before making a final decision." Upon hearing this, the Mutt official and villagers became despondent. They fervently prayed to Sri Raghavendra Swamigalu, saying, "O Sri Rayaru, please influence the British officer, inspire him, and protect our village." It was at this moment that Sri Rayaru displayed the immense power of his yogic energy and astonished the Englishman, Sri Thomas Munro. The event unfolded as follows. Sri Thomas Munro, who was camped in Mantralaya, descended from the hill the next morning using one of the village paths. Accompanying him were hundreds of Mutt officials and villagers of Mantralaya. There was no glow on anyone's face, only concern and anxiety. Yet, amidst these mixed emotions, there, were, there was an unwavering faith that Sri Raya would protect the village, and silently prayers were rising from their hearts. As Munro descended, he caught sight of the shimmering Tungabhadra river, sparkling under the golden rays of the morning sun, flowing swiftly. At that very moment, he felt a powerful energy surge through his body. Perhaps the mere sight of the sacred Tungabhadra washed away his inner turmoil and cleansed his mind and soul. Munro hurried towards the village, touched it reverently, and washed his hands, feet, and face with its pure, cool water. This behavior, never before seen in Munro, astonished his secretary and a team of officials. Turning to his close secretary, Munro asked, "Is that where the Guru's tomb is located?" The secretary pointed towards the Guru's temple. The Gauda and the Kulkarni came forward to guide him. Walking down a narrow path covered with stones and thorns, Munro reached near the temple of the Guru, which was enclosed by a high stone wall built atop a small hillock. In front of his eyes appeared the grand stone mantapa housing two Vrindavanas, and facing them was the mantapa of Sri Vayudevaru. As Munro approached the temple, a deep peace, contentment, and tranquility, unlike anything he had even experienced, settled over him. His body shivered with a sense of awe. Right away, he removed his footwear and hat, handed his cane, that is staff, to a Japanese assistant who was with him, and proceeded with reverence. He came and stood at the small main entrance within the Ram's head arch. Those nearby told him, "What you see in front is the Vrindavana of Sri Raghavendra Guruswami. The other Vrindavana, situated at the side, belongs to the great saint Sri Vadendra Tirtharu." The door to Sri Rayaru's inner sanctum was closed with a wooden screen. When Munro said, "I would like to see the Guru's tomb," the priest, with permission from the Mutt authorities, opened the screen and stepped aside. There before him stood Sri Rayaru's divine Vrindavana, resplendent with gem-like luster, adorned with sacred symbols, tulsi garlands, and namamudras, that is, sacred seals. On both sides glowed two oil lamps, as though proclaiming, "Here, to those who surrender, this leader among the wise dispels the darkness of ignorance and grants the light of knowledge." The people, overjoyed at his darshan of Sri Rayaru's Vrindavana, erupted in reverence with a victory chant, "Rajadiraja Guru Sarvabhouma Govinda Govinda." They folded their hands and stood in respectful silence. What exactly happened, no one could say, but Sir Thomas Munro all of a sudden stood in military posture, feet together, chest out, hands joined in respectful salutations, and stood with folded hands like a humble Hindu before the Vrindavana. Those around him were stunned by this. It was nothing short of extraordinary that a British senior official, a foreigner, a non-believer, an outsider, was showing such reverence at the tomb of an Indian saint. There was a sense of amazement on Munro's face, as if he had seen something divine. He was muttering something unclearly. No one could quite make out what he was saying, but it was evident that he was indeed speaking. At that moment, Munro turned to his secretary and asked something. The secretary and the Serishtadar, astonished, looked at the Vrindavana, then at Munro, and shook their heads in bewilderment. This behavior, this line of questioning, it all had a reason. Munro was witnessing a miracle, something that defied anything he had seen or known in his entire life. What wonder is this? What am I seeing? Is it real or is it an illusion? He thought, rubbing his eyes and again looking at the Vrindavana, now overwhelmed in an ocean of awe. And what did Munro see? This was the vision revealed to him. As he fixed his gaze upon the Vrindavana, a flash of light like lightning shone forth, and Sri Rayaru's Vrindavana split open into two. A blazing brilliance, so dazzling that it blinded the eyes, emerged. Nothing else was visible in that effulgence. As Munro stood watching in astonishment, the intense light began to soften. Within that radiant halo appeared the divine, auspicious form of Sri Guru Sarvabhouma. Seeing Sri Rayaru, a wave of devotion and reverence overwhelmed Munro. His body trembled. Having received a divine vision, his inner impurities were washed away. A sense of pure, heartfelt emotion surged through his being. Filled with astonishment, joy, and devotion, he was overcome by an indescribable spiritual ecstasy. These Indian saints are truly yogis of the highest order. Though he entered Samadhi 150 years ago, he is still alive. Surely there is something extraordinary power residing in him that surpasses all human intellect and effort. Even our Holy Bible does not describe superhuman saints of such power. Indeed, what is impossible for a servant of God? Knowing the world as theirs, they undertake penance and yoga for the welfare of humanity. Such great souls alone can uplift this world. Man, incomplete and petty, placing his faith in his own power and ambition, filled with hatred, vengeance, and selfishness, has distanced himself from the omnipotent God and is headed towards his own destruction. This will not lead to the welfare of the world. These Indians are blessed, for they believe in God, and by relying on Him, they are happy. Since they believe the world belongs to the Lord, they accept even the foreign invasion or rule as part of divine will and live peacefully in His kingdom. Despite facing many crises, they endure with inner strength. These noble beings continue to guide the world with knowledge and values. That is why India is so renowned across the world. This nation is the cradle of spiritual greatness and continues to teach peace, friendship, and the glory of God to the entire world. Immersed in this flood of spiritual thoughts, Munro came back to his senses. He offered his respects once more to the Guru and stood silently. Rayaru spoke to him, saying, "Where there is righteousness, there is victory. Yato dharma, tato jayaha." He blessed Munro with sacred mantras and consecrated rice, that is Phalamantrakshata, and then disappeared from his view as Munro continued to gaze in wonder. None of the people nearby could understand what had happened, but the sacred Mantrakshata, that is blessed rice, in Munro's palm was visible to all, and they were amazed, realizing that Sri Rayaru had appeared and blessed the European officer to protect their village. They cheered with victory chants in praise of Sri Rayaru and celebrated with great joy. A sense of peace and happiness danced on Munro Sahib's face, accompanied by a gentle smile. Showing the Mantrakshata to the Serishtadar, he asked, "The Guru appeared to me and gave this. What should I do with it?" Those nearby said, "Sir, this is sacred Mantrakshata, a symbol of the Guru's blessings. It is rare and not granted to just anyone. You are indeed fortunate to receive it. You should wear it on your head with reverence. Keep it safe. All your wishes will be fulfilled and auspiciousness will follow." Overjoyed, Munro placed the akshata on his head and gave half of it to his secretary to be used in preparing his meal that day. The remaining half he tied carefully in his kerchief and placed in his pocket. Then he offered prayers to Rayaru's Brindavana and departed respectfully with everyone to his residence. That very day, Munro, satisfied after partaking of the meal blessed by Mantrakshata, issued a formal written order declaring that the village Mantralaya would forever belong to Sri Raghavendra Swamigalu Matha. He handed one copy of this decree to the Mutt official and departed for Ballari. A few days later, when the pontiff of the Mutt was informed by the Mutt officials of everything that had occurred, he was overwhelmed with joy and praised the greatness of Sri Rayaru. Sir Thomas Munro, who had been blessed by Sri Rayaru's grace, later received the title Sir, that is knighthood, from the British government and became the governor of the Madras Presidency, renowned as Sir Thomas Munro. This miraculous event of Sri Rayaru blessing a British official is recorded even today in the Gazetteer of Ballari. Moreover, in the book Sri Thomas Munro, written by Krishnaswami Rao, it is mentioned that Sri Munro himself wrote a letter to his daughter in London, narrating how a yogi named Sri Raghavendra Swamiguru, who had entered Samadhi 150 years earlier, had appeared to him, spoken with him, and given him Mantrakshata with blessings. Indians are theistic by nature. They believe in God and Dharma. So it is natural that they glorify Sri Rayaru's greatness, but that a foreigner, a non-believer, an official of the British Empire like Sir Thomas Munro would write that Sri Rayaru, even 150 years after entering Samadhi, appeared to him, spoke with him, and gave him blessed Akshata. This is monumental testimony to Sri Rayaru's divine power. From this perspective, the miracle shown by Sri Guru Raghavendra Swamigalu in the mid-19th century, the 2nd century after entering Brindavana, is supremely significant event. Even though Sir Munro was a foreigner and a non-Hindu, Sri Rayaru, being a knower of one's true spiritual nature, recognized that Munro was worthy soul, and hence granted him a vision, conversation, and the blessing of Mantrakshata, something inaccessible even to others. Extract from Madras District Gazetteer by W. Francis, volume number 1, Ballari, reprint 1915 by the Superintendent Government Press, Madras. Chapter 15, Adoni Taluk, page number 213. Mantasala, that is Mantralaya, a short trim village with a population of 1212 on the bank of the Taluk. The village is widely known as containing the tomb of the Madhava saint Sri Raghavendra Swamigalu. The annual festival in August connected with, which is attended by large numbers of pilgrimage, including even Lingayats from Bombay, the Nizam, Dominions, and even Mysore. The tomb itself is not architectural interest. The grant of the land endowments attached to it is said one of the Mackenzie's MSS to have been made by Venkana Pant, the well-known Diwan of Siddhi Masood Khan, governor of Adoni from 1662 to 1687. A quaint story of Sri Thomas Munro is told about the place. The endowment being threatened with resumption, Munro, it is said, came to make enquiries. After removing his boots and taking off his hat, he approached the grave. The saint thereupon emerged from his tomb and met him. They conversed together for some time regarding the resumption, but though the saint was visible and audible to Munro, who was himself, the people declare, semi-divine, none of the others who were there could either see or hear what he said. Discussion ended. Munro returned to his tent and quashed the proposal to resume the endowment. Being offered some consecrated rice, he accepted it and ordered it to be used in the preparation of his meals for that day. Madras Review, 8, 280. Hari Om, Om Sri Krishnarpanamastu.